Welcome to US Briefing. How to optimize your body clock to lose weight. Telegraph. According to a new study from Franklin Pierce University in New Hampshire, the best time to exercise is between the hours of 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. The study found that people who exercised in the morning were 6 pounds lighter and had a lower BMI than those who exercised later in the day. They were also less likely to have unhealthy diets and consumed fewer calories. Other recommendations for losing weight include eating breakfast at 10 a.m. and focusing on starting the day with protein, finishing your last cup of coffee by 12 p.m., eating some carbs midday, taking short breaks throughout the day, exercising with weights or doing yoga between 4 p.m. and 6 p.m., finishing dinner by 6 p.m., skipping alcohol before bed, and getting to bed by 10 p.m. The study also found that going to bed 75 minutes earlier than usual can help reduce calorie intake. Another study found that sleep deprivation can increase appetite, leading to overeating. Trapdoor reveals secret drug stockpile under play area at daycare where child died. The Sydney Morning Herald. A daycare center in the Bronx, New York, has been found to be concealing fentanyl, other narcotics, and drug paraphernalia. The discovery was made after a 1-year-old died and 3 children were exposed to drugs at the facility. The police had already found 1 kilogram of fentanyl near nap mats at the daycare center, but a tip led them to uncover a trapdoor under a play area that was hiding more drugs. The daycare program's operator and a tenant have been arrested and are facing criminal possession of drugs and other charges. Climate change victims are dying in an epicenter of indifference. The Sydney Morning Herald. UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has revealed plans to overturn his government's previous climate policies, including support for energy efficiency programs and the phase-out of carbon-intensive gas heaters and internal combustion vehicles. The move has attracted criticism, including from former Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who said that the UK cannot afford to lose ambition for its green industrial revolution. Sunak's speech coincided with the Climate Action Summit at the United Nations, where many leaders called for an end to the fossil fuel era. The UN summit did not invite the world's 3 biggest emitters, China, the US, and India, to address its plenary session. Drive to increase women in golf remains in full swing. The Independent. While the number of women playing golf has tripled during the pandemic, only 13% of club members are female. However, England Golf is attempting to increase female participation levels through initiatives such as Women on Par and Girls Golf Rocks. The average age of female members is 64, 10 years older than male members. Why plane cabins have barely changed in 50 years. Telegraph. Airlines have failed to innovate their aircraft cabins due to financial constraints, according to Peter Hughes in The Guardian. He points out that, while cars have improved significantly in terms of comfort and technology, plane cabins have changed little since the 1970s. Hughes argues that the rise of budget carriers and the need for greener aircraft have caused airlines and manufacturers to focus on saving money, rather than design. He adds that lighter aircraft, made from carbon fiber reinforced plastic composites, and lean burn engines, have enabled airlines to reduce costs and offer lower fares, outweighing the need for innovation. However, the deep-pocketed Gulf carriers have taken risks with onboard showers and bars on Airbus A380s. A lack of options, due to safety, certification and weight concerns, has also stifled creativity among manufacturers. Hughes highlights the work of David Kayon, who has redesigned Qantas's cabins, as a rare example of innovation. Kayon has abandoned overhead bins and introduced a cathedral-like ceiling in the business-class cabin of Qantas's new Airbus A350 jets, to create visual calm. Zelensky comes to Ottawa as Ukraine scrambles to shore up allies' support. CBC. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has arrived in Canada for a 2-day visit, following his trip to Washington. He will meet with federal cabinet ministers to discuss progress in the Ukrainian military's counteroffensive against Russian forces. It is expected that Canada will announce further military and social assistance during Zelensky's visit. While Zelensky faced a somewhat subdued reception in Washington, experts say he is likely to face a less skeptical audience in Canada. Zelensky's objective is to show progress in Ukraine's counteroffensive and secure sustained funding from allies. Manufacturers say American auto worker strike could idle Canadian supplier plants. CBC. The ongoing strike by auto workers in the U.S. is expected to idle manufacturing plants in Canada within days. The strike, which involves 13,000 workers at General Motors, Ford, and Stellantis, is causing concern for companies that supply parts for vehicles being built in North America. The strike comes at a difficult time for the industry, with a global microchip shortage and other disruptions already impacting the supply chain. Industry experts warn that the strike could lead to layoffs and reduced hours for workers at Tier 1 and Tier 2 supplier plants in Canada. New app uses AI to help Calgary medical students practice interacting with patients. The Toronto Star. A medical student at the University of Calgary's Cumming School of Medicine has developed an app that uses artificial intelligence, AI, to help future doctors practice their diagnostic and communication skills. The app, called OSCE-GPT, allows students to interact with virtual patients, who can answer questions and provide feedback. The app has been well received, with over 550 healthcare trainees from around the world signing up within the first month of its launch. The developer hopes to expand the app to include images such as X-rays and CT scans. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky set to address Parliament Friday. The Toronto Star. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is visiting Canada to discuss how Canada can further help Ukraine defend itself against Russia. The two leaders are expected to talk about providing more military aid and extending military funding beyond the next year. Zelensky is set to address the Canadian Parliament for the second time since the invasion began. Ukraine's ambassador to Canada has called for more military aid to be provided quickly to prevent Russia from replenishing its war chest. Zelensky warned the United Nations Security Council that Russia intends to destroy the post-war order. Waller's Worldwide Balancing Act as colts collide in stallion-making feature. The Sydney Morning Herald. Chris Waller, one of Australia's leading horse trainers, will have two horses competing in the Golden Rose on Saturday. Waller has to keep both Coolmore and Newgate, the two competing syndicates, happy as they both own part of the horses. The jockey for Coolmore's horse will be Ryan Moore, who has flown in from Europe, and Newgate's horse will be ridden by Brazilian João Moreira. Waller believes that both horses have a chance of winning the race and is looking forward to seeing how they perform. China urges U.S. envoy to Japan to stop favoring Japan's irresponsible behavior. Reuters. China has criticized U.S. Ambassador to Japan, Rahm Emanuel, for favoring Japan's irresponsible behavior regarding the release of water from the Fukushima nuclear plant. China called on the U.S. to stop being biased in favor of Japan and to join other countries in urging Japan to find a responsible way to dispose of the wastewater. Biden's IRA drives surge in U.S. imports of Chinese used cooking oil. Reuters. China has seen a surge in exports of used cooking oil, UCO, to the U.S. as a result of increased demand for environmentally friendly fuel in the country. In the first 8 months of 2023, Chinese exports of UCO to the U.S. reached almost 384,000 metric tons, accounting for around 65% of U.S. imports during that period. The U.S. has introduced tax credits to incentivize the production of sustainable aviation fuel and biodiesel, leading to a growing market for UCO. China is the largest producer of UCO in the world, generating around 11.4 billion liters annually. Live Ukraine-Russia War Live. Zelensky meets Trudeau on surprise Canada visit. Telegraph. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has made an unannounced visit to Canada to seek support for his country. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau welcomes Zelensky and is expected to announce an increase in military aid to Ukraine during the visit. Canada has committed over $8 billion Canadian dollars in aid to Ukraine since the beginning of 2022, including $1.8 billion Canadian dollars in military assistance. The surprise visit comes as U.S. President Joe Biden warns Republicans in Congress that there is no alternative to funding military support for Ukraine, as some lawmakers threaten to block a new arms package. News Corp newspapers full of praise for Rupert Murdoch as he takes up new role. The Guardian. Rupert Murdoch's Australian newspapers were unable to report his stepping down as chairman of News Corp due to the news breaking after the print deadline. The Wall Street Journal, one of Murdoch's U.S. mastheads, broke the story later. Murdoch stated in a note to staff that he is not retiring but rather taking on different roles. The UK Redtop The Sun framed the story as a new job for the 92-year-old media tycoon, while the New York Post referred to it as a new role rather than an ending. The New York Times described it as the formal end to an active career. Zelensky showing the strain as Ukraine's allies turn up pressure. South China Morning Post. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is facing increasing pressure from allies and supporters as the conflict with Russia drags on. Zelensky suspects that U.S. President Joe Biden's commitment to Ukraine is waning, and other leaders may be following suit. The Ukrainian president is being urged to focus on reforming the country, including tackling corruption, as an incentive for financial aid. Some countries are even planning to link future aid to specific reforms, such as strengthening the anti-corruption prosecutor's office. Allies are also concerned about how long Zelensky can continue the conflict before he begins negotiations with Russia. Zelensky is worried that Biden's re-election campaign next year could disrupt the supply of aid and weapons. The Ukrainian president has been making efforts to crack down on corruption, but reports of fresh abuses by those involved in the war effort have damaged morale and weakened support. Zelensky has until the end of September to show progress in certain areas if Ukraine's applications for EU membership and an IMF program are to advance. Reforms will also be a condition for NATO membership. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.